All right, so are you ready to jump into the wild world of sports streaming? Today's deep dive is all about a potential merger that could completely change how you watch your favorite teams. We've got some breaking news articles here all about this deal between Disney, the powerhouse behind Hulu and ESPN, and then you have FuboTV, which is a streaming service known for, well, sports.
Absolutely. And this isn't just about like two companies shaking hands and joining forces. This is about the whole landscape of how we consume sports.
So much bigger than just a business deal.
Right. We're going to be talking power dynamics and options for us, the viewers, but also why things are getting so complicated when it comes to streaming.
Okay, so to get started, can we break down these companies just a bit? Most people know Disney pretty well, but what exactly makes FuboTV unique in this, sea of streaming services out there?
Well, they've really gone after those hardcore sports fans. They've got a really wide selection of live sports channels, even some that you won't see on other platforms. They're kind of like that specialty store if you're a sports enthusiast.
Oh, I like that analogy, the specialty store for sports fans.
Yeah, and this potential merger, well, it could make them an even bigger player in the game.
Interesting. So more specific content, but there's also that whole thing with VNewSports, right?
Exactly. VNewSports, it's a pretty big venture. You've got some major names involved there. We're talking ESPN, Warner Bros., Discovery, and Fox.
Oh, wow. So that's a lot of big names altogether.
Right, and the plan was to launch this past fall. But, well, FuboTV actually filed an antitrust lawsuit. They claim that VNewSports would basically crush the competition and send prices through the roof.
Okay, so they were worried about like a monopoly situation.
Pretty much. And that lawsuit, well, it actually stopped the launch from happening. Now, it looks like this whole merger thing with Disney, it might be part of a settlement.
Okay, so we've got some legal drama, some blocked launches. This is getting juicy. So what exactly would this deal mean for both Disney and FuboTV if it actually, happens?
So Disney would end up owning 70% of the combined Hulu plus Live and FuboTV.
70%. Wow, that's a huge chunk. So they'd have control. What kind of impact would that have on streaming in general?
I mean, think about it. That would make them the second largest digital TV provider. Only YouTube TV would be bigger.
Wow, second largest.
Yeah, and that translates to millions more potential subscribers, which in the streaming world, it's everything.
So more subscribers for them, does that automatically mean more choices for viewers?
That's where it gets, well, kind of tricky. You see more options, yes, at least on the surface. But remember, we're already drowning in choices when it comes to streaming services. Adding another layer to that, it might actually make it harder for people to find what they actually want to watch.
So it's almost like too much of a good thing.
Exactly. It's like, going to a grocery store with like a million different kinds of cereal. It sounds great at first, but then you're just completely overwhelmed.
Oh, I totally get that. So instead of simplifying things, this deal might just frustrate viewers.
It's a definite possibility.
Yeah.
But, there's also a flip side to this. This merger could give FuboTV the resources to create a totally new service. They could bundle in a lot of Disney networks, ESPN++, and who knows what else.
So a brand new package with tons of sports. But wait, didn't ESPN also announce that they were working on their own streaming service, flagship or something?
They did, yeah. And they're planning on launching that later this year. So now we're talking about Hulu plus Live, FuboTV, this new possible Fubo Disney package, and ESPN flagship. It makes you wonder how anyone's going to keep track of all these different options.
It's a lot. And on top of all of that, we haven't even mentioned VNewSports in a while. Are they still planning to launch even after that lawsuit?
It seems like they are, yeah. They're determined to get into the game even with those legal challenges. They've even said it would cost about $43 a month.
$43?
Yeah, and for that, you get access to major leagues like NBA, MLB, NFL, the big ones, and some college games too. And there's even talk of bundling VNewSports with other services, things like Disney+, Hulu, or Max.
$43 for all that? That's not too bad compared to some of those crazy cable packages out there. But still, this is a lot to process. We've got players making big moves, all these new services popping up. What does this actually mean for, the average person who just wants to watch a game?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, more options aren't necessarily a bad thing, but they have to be presented in a way that makes sense for us, the viewers. Otherwise, it just becomes a mess of content. You know what I mean?
A total streaming jungle?
Exactly.
So it feels like we're trying to get away from those old cable packages and like move towards this streaming dream world, but it kind of feels like we're just stuck somewhere in between, you know?
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, are we really better off with all these different choices? Or are we just trading one problem for another?
Right. Like, is it really a solution or just a different kind of mess?
That's what makes this Disney-FuboTV thing so interesting, right? This could be like a major turning point for streaming. We could be seeing like the beginning of this consolidation phase where the big players just like start to take over.
So instead of everyone competing, it's more like a few streaming empires.
Exactly.
I can see how that might actually make things easier, you know, at least for viewers. But are there any like downsides to that kind of consolidation?
I mean, there are always downsides, right? Fewer streaming services might mean it's easier to find what you're looking for, and it could even make prices go down, who knows? But when you only have a few companies in control, well, you also risk having less choice, less innovation, that kind of thing.
So we might see like less variety in the sports we can watch, or maybe less interesting features on the platforms themselves.
Yeah, those are definitely some valid concerns. Less competition can sometimes mean companies just don't try as hard. If they're the only game in town, why bother with all the bells and whistles?
Makes sense. So is there anything we can do about it? I mean, we're not exactly running these streaming companies.
That's true, but we do have power as consumers, the choices we make, you know, our feedback, whether we're willing to switch to a different service if we're not happy, it all sends a message.
So like voting with our wallets and our remotes.
Exactly. But to really do that, we need to stay informed. We need to think about what we really want from streaming and be vocal about it.
Okay, I'm ready to use my consumer power. What are some specific things that people listening should be keeping an eye on as this whole streaming thing keeps changing?
Let's see. First, you got to watch those prices. See how all these mergers and acquisitions are affecting things. Are there more bundles and deals? Or are prices just going up as these companies get bigger?
So keep an eye on the bottom line. Got it. What else?
Second, pay attention to the content itself. Are we getting more coverage of different sports, or is it still all about those big leagues?
Hopefully there's room for everything. I like variety. Anything else?
Oh, and the user experience. You know, are these platforms getting easier to use? Better search features? Are they actually giving us recommendations we care about, or are we still stuck with a million menus and apps?
Oh, yeah, the user experience is so important. Nobody wants to waste time searching instead of actually watching.
Totally agree. And that's where we, as viewers, have the power to say something. We should be demanding a streaming experience that works for us, that's easy, and worth our money.
Right. It can't just be about what they're offering. We have a voice, too.
Exactly.
So it sounds like this Disney-FuboTV thing is like just one piece of a much bigger story here, right?
Yeah.
It's not just about these two companies. It's about the whole future of sports streaming.
That's exactly it. This whole merger raises some really big questions about competition, choice, and, you know, what direction is this whole industry even going in? It's all changing so fast, and we'll have to see how it all plays out.
It's a lot to think about, that's for sure. So we've covered a lot of ground here, from these potential mergers to lawsuits to all these new streaming packages. And the biggest question, how are we supposed to figure out where to watch anything in this crazy streaming world?
Right. It's changing so fast.
Yeah.
I think the big takeaway, though, is that the whole world of sports streaming, well, it's in like this constant state of change, which is exciting, but also a bit confusing. It's really up to us, the viewers, to kind of decide where this all goes next.
We're not just like along for the ride, are we?
No, not at all. And that's why it's so important to be informed and engaged. We need to actually think about what we want and make choices, you know, smart choices as consumers.
So this is for everyone listening right now. What does this all mean for you? We've talked about more choices, but also potentially more confusion and more complexity. What can people actually do to get the most out of their sports streaming experience?
You know, there's not one right answer for everyone, is there? It really depends on what you need, what you prefer. Are you the kind of fan who has to see every game no matter what? Or are you a bit more, well, selective? Do you care more about finding a good deal and something easy to use?
So it's all about figuring out what really matters to you first.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to just try things out, you know? See what different services offer, check out those bundles, and figure out what works for you. This whole landscape is changing all the time, so what works today might not work tomorrow.
So be ready to adapt, basically. Be informed, and don't be afraid to try new things.
Yeah, and remember, it's not just about what these companies are offering. It's also about what we're asking for. We have the power to change things as viewers.
This has been such a great deep dive. Thanks so much for coming on and sharing all of your insights with us.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. This has been a really fun conversation.
And for everyone listening, we hope this deep dive has helped you understand this whole crazy world of sports streaming a little bit better and given you the information you need to make the best choices for yourselves. Thanks for tuning in.